I'm your host, Steffi Pilarino, and today I have the pleasure to have with us Sandra Ro. Welcome, Sandra.
Thank you so much for having me, and it's so good to see you. It's been too long.
It's been too long. So Sandra is the CEO of GBBC, the Global Blockchain Business Council. We met, I think, just before you became the CEO, right, at the World
That's
Economic
right.
Forum in Davos. Was that 2018 or
It would have
19?
been 2017, I believe.
17. Oh my God.
I was
Uh,
still at CME Group. Yeah.
You were still at CME Group, exactly. But I remember that your heart was always in sustainability and impact. And it continues to be so. When I look at your LinkedIn profile, I don't see your CEO title first. I see SDG and so on, and human-centric technology. So briefly tell us where you're coming from. I know that you have a financial services background, and also that the mission of the Global Blockchain Business Council, which is now what, the 4 years old or
Five. We
five,
just
five.
celebrated 5 years. Yeah.
Wow, wow, wow. So tell us about this association, industry association, and its mission, and what you're working on.
Great. Well,
First, about yourself.
yeah, first of all, thank you very much. And I have to say, I really appreciate you leading with human-centric tech, because that is ultimately where I come from in terms of why I do what I do. And I think if we don't use technology as a tool to solve real world problems, why do we even have it? For me, it's really around, we have big, big systems problems that we need to solve. And how do we help solve those with collaboration globally, and also the technology tools that we have? Not just blockchain. Blockchain is one of many. And so for me, I'm looking at how do we provide increased access, increased inclusion? How do we care about the climate and make sure that we actually are good to the environment? All of those things. The GBBC is an extension of that philosophy. And it came together, as you mentioned, by a group of entrepreneurs in Switzerland. We met. That was fantastic. I started off on the board, and now I've been the CEO actually for now 4 years, and it's 5 years old. And the reason why I've switched over to a nonprofit organization focusing on bringing lots of different stakeholders together is because I absolutely believe in the need for that collaboration, the education, and making sure that we don't fall into our own silos, especially today. Today, we could easily be doing our own thing and not talking to each other because of all the social distancing that has happened. But in a time of great change, I really think we now need to actually be together even more, even if it's not physical together, talking together, working together, building together.
Hearing each other and finding ways where we can support each other and grow together. There's no doubt about that. That's a mantra these days. But we all need to be reminded, right, in our daily actions, how to
Yeah.
go about this. Now, Sandra, recently I saw that you published, GBBC published the second edition of the International Journal of Law. Do I say it correctly? This
Blockchain
is
law. Yes.
blockchain law. Tell us about this. This is something that you are committed to. What exactly does it cover and include?
Yeah, absolutely. So, shorter term, IJBL, the International Journal of Blockchain Law, has really been put together by lawyers, edited by lawyers, written by lawyers for the business community, especially the busy executives who don't have a lot of time but understand that there are a lot of legal implications for what is happening in digital assets, what is happening in crypto, what is happening in blockchain, and each jurisdiction may be different as well. So what we do is we cover in each volume a number of different subtopics. How many people have heard about what's going on in DeFi lending in Vietnam? Well, that's in the article, one of the articles in this journal. We want to expose not only US, but Europe and Asia, everywhere. So we are open to submissions, and we are committed to having lots of different voices around the world, articulating different things like, what about digital rights management for NFTs? It's a big question around what happens when you fractionalize NFTs. Are they securities or are they not? And so we really appreciate the lawyers who try to distill very complex topics into understandable form for the rest of us who are not lawyers.
For the business people, right? In whatever capacity. You know, since my focus has always been in fintech, and you come from the same background, you talk about bridges to the future when you talk about fintech, and in your annual report you talk about the open business revolution. These to me seem sort of stars or compasses as to where we're going, and yet at the same time you participate in panels with the topic of wave of the future or a Ponzi scheme. Where do we stand? Where does the industry stand in terms of the buy-in of these very sort of wonderful compasses that we mentioned before, the open business revolution and bridges to the future?
So I think you said lots of different concepts there, which I think, let me start with this. I think we are in general moving towards a world of open source, open ideas, and increased collaboration. And that's what blockchain is. It's a collaboration technology. It's not, I built it, now you license from me, and I am the central authority of everything. I think that model is really being broken down. Don't get me wrong, I still think there will be some groups that will hold centralized models, but there is a world increasingly that is having a more federated or distributed way of sharing responsibility and actions. And I think that's very interesting. But that also means that a lot of these centralized models have to go through either a transition or a bridging or actually wholesale competition, which renders them, the model ineffective for the future. And I think it remains to be seen how many established TradFi companies will remain, how many will evolve. But that's just a normal course of innovation and challenges around how technology is transforming things. I don't think that's anything specific to blockchain. But what is unique to blockchain, I think, and crypto and digital assets is the fact that it's pushing on so many different levels. Digital identity, what is money? What is the concept around packaging and automating processes through smart contracts? Who gets to issue value? Is it a bank? Is it a government? Is it a group of people in a DAO? There are so many different models now. I think it seems like the world is completely turning upside down, but in fact, I think what's happening is there's an evolution. Some people are obviously working in cutting edge, but most of the rest of the world, we will have a bridging and an evolution towards a more distributed, decentralized model, is what I would imagine.
So a lot of openness in rethinking concepts that we take as a given and we haven't been questioning for quite a while. It seems that you are referring to. And obviously regulation, we like to say in innovation that regulation determines the dominant technology and what happens, and who knows, maybe this will be to a degree in this case, and clearly it's an interactive process. You have been at the forefront of advocacy, and also I know that you testified at the U.S. Senate at the Committee for Agriculture and Forestry, if I'm correct.
Yes.
And the topic was around digital assets, risks, regulation, and innovation. Tell us a little bit about that experience and how it went. What was
Sure.
your...
Sure, I appreciate that. And the significance of the Senate Acts Committee, for short, is because they are the ones who have oversight and provide funding for the CFTC. And that's important, obviously, because it's one of the major regulators at the federal level. And what I found interesting about participating in that hearing, which was last month, is the bipartisan support there is that, number one, this is a very important innovation and that it should be encouraged, but there are also bad actors in the space, and therefore there needs to be guardrails to protect consumers, protect institutions, protect and safeguard systems. And then also, but the complication is always what will be the rules, and will they allow for the innovation as well as regulating properly. And I think that's where the challenge will be. There was no debate, at least at the hearing that I attended, about whether there should be regulation or not. It's coming, it's happening. It's a question about what are the definitions, what does CFTC look have oversight versus SEC versus maybe Treasury and FinCEN, for example.
Yeah. These are big issues in the US, which body will have the main responsibility of regulating and overseeing and so on. And this relates naturally to the Biden executive order. With the 180 days, we're already, time is running. Tell us how you see all this, what we know up until now, in terms of shaping Web3, the fourth industrial revolution. We all understand that this is not just narrow for crypto and crypto exchanges and so on. This is very important and has broad ramifications.
Absolutely. So if I take a step back and just say, GBBC right now has nearly 400 institutional members from around the world. Many of them do sit in the US, but they sit all over the world. And not everyone has the same exact view about the way, if the US leads, that's a good thing. If UK leads, that's a good thing. I do think, though, what we should be looking towards, and I think it's a good sign that we have the US now engaged, is to recognize that this technology is, number one, really important. Number two, it is global. So there needs to be global coordination. As much as I appreciate the US is now looking to lead in this space, we need the coordination across the board, from Europe, from Asia, from all places. And that will be a challenge. The executive order was very interesting to me because there's a couple things. The industry and different people have been asking for 5, 6, 7 years, some much longer, for this kind of recognition. But it's happening now. And you mentioned 180 days. It's very fast pace for government. Why? Why this urgency in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of war going on? And also, let's not forget, in the US and everywhere else, hyperinflation on the horizon. So to ask this right now really does actually raise an eyebrow, at least for me. This is asking a lot of these agencies. And if you look at the list of agencies that now need to produce a report and a plan, it is a long list. It's not just Treasury or the Fed or CFTC and it's many, many different agencies. And so I think there's a lot coming out. I think the US is clearly decided that this is important now. And we'll have to see what the reactions are around the world. But I do imagine other countries have now taken a look at this and said, okay, maybe we need to formulate a strategy publicly if they have not already. Australia has, Switzerland has, UK somewhat has, yeah, they have. And then a few other countries, but there are many more to come, I think.
Yeah, and as you said, the issue is how controversial or different each of these countries and regions are going to be, and what sort of hidden agendas are going to be around this, because open source technology of this type that is cross-industry has a lot of other ramifications, much like artificial intelligence, I guess. There's no doubt about that. Let me ask you a sensitive question. I mean, China, we know, is ahead of the game in terms of, their central bank digital currency, but also in terms of blockchain. They have established this blockchain system network, BSN. And how is that part of GBBC, and how do you see that development from China?
Yeah, so just BSN is part of GBBC as a member. We have members from all over the world. We absolutely support those groups that are looking at collaboration and working with others, and BSN absolutely does. I think they're trying to make it easier to create standards around how a business or a group can plug into a blockchain network. Almost as self-service. I guess one day it'll be very easy to turn on a set of services and applications on a network. They're not the only ones. There are others as well who are trying to do the same thing. But we will work with those around the world who are looking for international collaboration, just as BSN does, as well as others.
Very interesting. So preserving the openness principle and looking at the technology and the use cases. Sandra, everybody's talking about Web3, and yeah, I mean, it's clear that we don't even have a definition. You know, I say Web3 and I mean something else, and you say Web3 and you know, you have something else in your file. How do you feel about this? What is your personal opinion on what Web3 is and where we are at, and whether actually blockchain absolutely necessary for Web3 or not? Are we in a phase that we are open?
I always try to weigh the pros and cons in anything I look at, but when I look at Web3, I think that definition will evolve over time. I think you are absolutely correct. I think lots of different people have different ideas of what is Web3. If it doesn't fit under Web2, it's Web3. But I think in a more general sense, what is a really interesting paradigm shift from Web2 is instead of one-way information flow, we have not only circular information flow, but value moving around as data in a circular fashion. And then layering that 3D experiences and just, you know, in real life versus what they now call the metaverse. I think those interactions, we're just beginning to understand what that's going to look like. It's not just gaming, it's not just lifestyle, it's not just retail, it's going to hit enterprises as well. But I can't tell you right now, what does that look like exactly? We don't know. We're on a trajectory for another decade, I think, to find out.
Right. I mean, in my mind, I like to think of pure software economic activity as being a more clear term. And I mean, gaming obviously falls under that category. That's what we understand today mostly, but it's going to be much, much bigger, and maybe it will contain economic activity that we haven't invented yet, and definitely moving from one world, from the digital world and the physical world. That I try to use that term in my head, so I feel comfortable that I'm not just using a term and not understanding what is
Yeah.
in there. Sandra, let's go back to the mission at the Global Blockchain Business Council.
Yes.
You mentioned that there are many countries participating, many member institutions. Tell us a little bit about these institutions. Are they mainly blockchain, protocols and some other, DeFi, dApps, and so on? What kinds of businesses are our members?
Our members span from household Fortune 500 names that everyone knows, all the way down to frontier country, or we call, some people call it emerging markets, startups you've never heard of, to supranationals and regulators and central banks, to, again, nonprofits you may have never heard of, sitting in different countries. So we really try to extend our network across many different walks of life. And we believe that we actually need everybody. We don't believe in a world where all the old institutions go away and there's none left. And we don't believe in a world where it's just all startups and that's it. We need both. And there are benefits to collaborating when you are a young startup with maybe a bigger company or a government or an agency, as well as those groups learning from the more agile protocols, DeFi protocols, you name it, right? Startups.
Is the investor, and I would say that the community that moves capital or allocates capital, rather, are they also part of GBBC?
Yes, we have a couple very large asset management type firms. Some of them are still learning. They're really just engaging in research, and some of them are actively getting involved. And then we have venture capital, which obviously will be investing and doing their thing. So we have a spectrum as well, that we have small VCs versus big VCs, and big hedge fund versus small hedge fund. But we really try to draw from lots of different groups because there's learnings from each of them and there's value. We definitely prescribe to the view that each institution brings value to the table and they have a different voice, and we should listen to each other and try to figure out where's the common ground. And I think today, and we talked about this before, with so much change going on, it feels very unsettling sometimes that it's just all about change. And what we need to kind of unpack is, what are we solving for? Why are we doing this? What actually needs to change? What needs to stay the same? And how do we bring all of these things together?
Very interesting. So Sandra, before we close, except these big important publications that you put out that are mainly around the legal aspects for now, what else do you organize? Do you organize events? How can people stay in touch and benefit from all the work that you're doing at GBBC?
Well, first of all, our mantra is all of our information is free, open, accessible. So everything on our website, and we are reorganizing our website because we have so much content and we want to make it easier for people to access it. It's completely free and available. So we have reports on topics from crypto mining to quantum resistant blockchains, all the way through to DeFi and NFTs. So we run the gamut of different reports and collaborations. We look at different industry groups and different topics. If people have ideas, they should send an info at gbbccouncil.org, and also our newsletter. You can sign up for that. That's all free. And what we really, really try to do, and we really appreciate our membership for supporting this, is really to do high quality, fact-based information and share that in an understandable way with the global community. What we're going to do next is try to make more multilingual, multiple translation documents. And obviously that takes resources and time, but we're going to try to get better and better at providing things in a more global sense.
Excellent. That is a wonderful goal. So 2022, we're looking for multilingual translations.
We started to do a little bit, but we need to do more. So
where have you started? What languages?
So we've done a few translations of the Global Standards Mapping Initiative in Mandarin, in Korean. I think there's a Portuguese translation. Again, a lot of our members gave their free time and expert translation services to be able to do that. So we really appreciate it.
And these global standards that I know your map of what exactly, because I'm sure over time it's become richer and richer, right? What exactly is mapped there?
So we've taken firstly 187 jurisdictions. And if you go to the map, you can hover over it, and we've aggregated every bill, white paper, anything related to crypto or digital assets or regulation of each country and each state in the United States. And we put it in one place for easy access in case you're researching. So it's really great for schools and universities and anyone doing research to find one place to go. Now, we will also improve the search function there to be able to help, obviously, with filtering. But right now, it's edited by country and jurisdiction. We mapped not only the legal and regulatory, but we also mapped 38 technical standards, as well as over nearly 400 consortia, blockchain consortia that are around the world, as well as we started a university list. And so if you go there, you can actually see around the world how many universities have blockchain courses, maybe they have degree programs, and we've tried to provide that information. So every year we add a different set of landscape mapping, and we have a lot of different reports: green economy, digital identity, crypto derivatives. There's a ton of information. So I appreciate the 131 institutions that were involved last year. We had over 200 individuals crowdsourcing this information.
Wow, this is a monumental effort. This is really a digital library that has been created, from the community.
Yes, and so what we're going to try to do is we keep it updated every year. And what we will do this year is we're going to try to reorganize the content so that it is truly easier to search, research, find the information much faster. Again, this is a work in progress, and we ask everyone to always bear with us and give us feedback, because it always can be better. And we're trying to make sure that we cover information that people really will find useful and would like to see.
And with the challenge of keeping up with all the changes that are happening on all fronts. It's not only the regulatory front, the technical, everything. I mean, the speed of change is just remarkable. So that's another challenge. Sandra, thank you so much for your insights and for sharing all this amazing work. And as you said in the beginning, this is nonprofit, this is ecosystem work, this is a model of industry collaboration with all stakeholders, I guess.
Yes, and I'm very proud to say that the whole community of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people in our network, just really good people trying to solve for whatever problem it is they've decided that they're going to focus on. And it's wonderful working with such bright minds and good hearts, as I call it.
Before we say goodbye to our audience, now that you said the people, there's clearly, Sandra, a move of talent and human capital, if you want, to what we said before is Web3, and a lot of it has to do with blockchain. Do you see this continuing? And is it really coming from a place of inspiration and hoping that we can really build a better future, a more open world, a fairer world, whatever it is?
I think partially it's driven by digitization and technology move, and Web3 seems very exciting to a lot of people. I think another part of it is the pandemic has really caused a lot of people to rethink their lives and what is important to them, and to the empowerment that they can maybe solve a problem or work on solving a problem that changes the world or changes their community at least. I think those kind of factors have made a big difference on whether people stay or go. I also think we just did a report with Heidrich and Struggles, one of our members, on the movement that we're seeing. And by the way, it's mainly one direction from financial services, especially very senior people leaving financial services, TradFi, and going to crypto, blockchain, and Web3. That trend is only getting stronger. And we wrote that paper, I believe, towards the end of last year. And we're finding that that momentum has only grown in the first quarter of 2022.
Interesting, very interesting. I will find the paper and definitely include
I'll
it
send
in,
it to you.
yeah, and
Send
include
you the
it
link.
in our in the description and the details. Sandra, thank you so much for joining us today, and it was a really great discussion.
Well, thank you so much. And as always, appreciate the opportunity, and so good to see you, even if on screen.
Exactly. So maybe Davos, maybe the next Davos.
Absolutely. We'll talk offline, Davos, May 23rd to the 26th.
Okay. Okay. Thanks again, Sandra.